Good morning, student. Today we'll start our new chapter, The Ashes That Made Trees Bloom. This is a summary in English, okay? Once there lived an old couple. They had a pet dog. They had no child. They loved the dog as if they were a baby. If it were a baby. The dog was called Moko. The kind couple fed the dog with their own forks. In return, the dog also loved them. So, once upon a time, there were an old couple. They had no child. They had one pet dog. They loved the dog very much as if it were a baby. And the dog name was Muko. The couple uh, feed the dog with their own spoons, own forks. In return, the dog loves them very much. The old man was a farmer. Every morning, Muko followed him to his fields, a errant walk in the footsteps of the old man to pick up worms. Like his master, the dog also never harmed the bird. So, the old man was a farmer. Whenever he goes to a field, Muko always followed him, and a heron walked in the footsteps. The old man picked up worms like his master. The dog also never harmed the bird. One day the dog put his paws against the old man's legs. He motioned with his head to some spot behind. To please his pet, the old man followed him. At a little distance from there, the dog stopped. It started scratching the ground to help his pet. The old man struck his oar in the earth. Now there were a pile of gold before him. So one day the dog put his paws against the old man's legs. Then he mentions his head to some spots behind. To please his pet, the old man followed him, and gradually they found a pile of gold before him. So the old couple became rich. They gave a feast to their friends and helped their poor neighbors also. And same village, there lived a wicked man or his wife. They brought the dog into their gardens. They set before him good food, but the dog was afraid. He neither eat nor move. They dragged the dog out of the doors. They walked with him. When they reached a pine tree, the dog began to scratch the ground. The wicked couple was delighted. Both of them dug the ground. What they got was dead kitten. The couple was very angry. They killed the dog. Then they flung him into the hole they had dug. They heaped the earth over his carcasses. Then they dragged the dogs out of the doors because they got angry. Then they walked with the dog. As they reached a pine tree, the dog started to scratch the ground. They thought there is gold, but they found dead kittens. They got angry. They started to kill the dog, and they heap the earth over his carcasses. The incident of the dogs that reached the ears of its owner. He felt so sad as if he had lost his own son. He went to the place where his pet had been buried. He mourned for a long time. He called him many dear names as if he were alive. That night he saw his dog in his dreams. The dogs asked him to cut the pine tree and make from it a mortar. He also asked him to make from that wood a meal. Then the death of the dog reaches the ears of its owner. That old man was so sad as if he lost his son. Then he reached where the dog was buried, and he mourned there for a long time. He called the dog names many times as if the dog was alive. And that night he saw his dog in dreams. In dreams, dogs asked to old men that cut the pine tree and make from it a mortar. He also asked him to make from that wood a meal. The old man did as he was told. With much labor, he made a small bowl of the wood. Then he made a long-handled hammer of wood. When the new year drew near, he decided to make some rice pastry. They put the boiled rice in the wooden mortar. The old man used the wooden hammer to pound the mass into dough. When the pastry was ready to baking, it turned into a mass of gold coins. The old woman took the hand mill and filling it with bean sauce again to grind. The gold dripped like rain. At this moment, the envious neighbor peeped into the window. He decided to borrow the mill. So, what the dog had said to his master, the master did as well. And with labor, his master, he made a small bowl of the wood. Then he made a long hammer also of wooden. As new year is reaching, they decided to make some rice pastry. They put the boiled rice in wooden mortar. Then the old man used the wooden hammer to pound the mass into dough. When the pastry was ready to baking, suddenly it turned a mass of coins. The old woman took the hand mill and filling it with bean sauce began to grind. But there were many envious neighbors who peeped into the window, and they decided to borrow the mill. The couple readily gave their meal to the neighbor. The men began to pound the rice, and the women began to grind. However, this time the pastry and sauce turned into worms. They broke the meal into pieces to use it as its firewood. The old couple readily gave their meal to the neighbors because they never thought that meal. They decided to borrow the meals, so the old couple gave to them. The men began to pound the rice and the women began to grind. But what happens? That rice, that pastry and sauce turned into worms. They broke the meal into pieces to use it. So, in this chapter, the moral of the story, kindness and love. So, student, this is your question and answer. This is question number 1. question number 2, question number 3. In question number 3 you will get 2 questions, 1, 2, and this is question number 4. Only I have given only 4 questions and answer. This is your homework. Do it by yourself at home. Okay, thank you.